Hello, this is Jerry Spinelli with the University of California Cooperative Extension in San Diego, and today we're looking at this organic Kratky. This is the same Kratky method that you've seen in my other videos, but this one is one of my experiments with organic fertilizer. And you see this lettuce looks really nice. We have some basil, we have some kale there, some more basil. Unfortunately, the bok choy felt the cold in a process called vernalization and decided that winter was coming and went to flower. So it's been really cold this spring in San Diego, unfortunately. But here I want to show you how happy the roots are, and they're thriving in that solution of water and fertilizer. And if you want to know more about the Kratky method, you can look at my other videos. But the difference this time is that I experimented with mixing two organic fertilizers, and the one that I would use normally is this one called Preempt, but it's expensive. And it turns out that it has a lot of phosphorus in it, and you do not need all that phosphorus. And so I said, well, could I use another fertilizer instead? That not instead is as in a combination that does not have phosphorus. So the quantity of Preempt that we will put in the tub is determined by nitrogen. So we need way more nitrogen than phosphorus. And so I said, well, maybe I can find another fertilizer that is cheaper by the pound of nitrogen. And I found this one, this Explorer 1600. The other good thing is that it has you can buy a small quantity, because maybe you don't want to buy a 50-pound bag of organic fertilizer if you're growing lettuce in your backyard. And so by mixing these two, I achieved a good balance between nitrogen and phosphorus. And also, again, I made the recipe cheaper, because this one is very expensive. The Preempt is very expensive because it's liquid, so it's very heavy, it has a lot of water in it, and also you have to import it from Florida, so it tends to be expensive. Okay, this is what the Explorer looks like. It's just powder and kind of a little stinky, and this is just liquid. So now let me show you how I calculated and what are the quantities of these two fertilizers that you will need for a 20 gallons tub like this, like you have seen already in my other videos. Okay, now we're in the office, and let me show you this spreadsheet here. So typically for organic hydroponics, we use Preempt, and that's the industry standard. A lot of people use it for basil in NFT, etc. And typically the label says between 1 and 2 ounces, fluid ounces per gallon. And in the Kratky system with the 20 gallons of water, I've used 1 ounce per gallon, meaning 20 ounces. So my question was, okay, how much fertilizer, how much nitrogen, how much phosphorus, and how much potassium am I applying? So to answer that question, I took a sample of Preempt and I sent it to the lab, because on the label they don't tell you the quantity of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which is kind of surprising. So this is the analysis when it came back: 2.2, 1.8, 2.5. This is the percentages, of course, of NPK. Of course, fertilizer are always reported in terms of P2O5 and in terms of K2O. So you have to multiply by these factors to calculate what's the amount of phosphorus and what's the amount of potassium. So that's what I did. And so the final percentages again are 2.2 of nitrogen, 0.8 of phosphorus, and 2.1 of potassium. And here I put it as a number, is the same as calling it 2%. So then I said, well, okay, they recommend one fluid ounce per gallon. How many gallons is that? How many part per million is that? And then I said, okay, if the total tub has 20 gallons, we need 20 fluid ounce. That is the same of about 600 milliliters. And then the analysis from the lab also gave me the density, which turns out is really close to the density of water. And so those 590 milliliters are very close to the same in grams, 583 grams. So then multiplying these numbers in grams by the percentages, by this number, then now I'm calculating that in those 20 fluid ounces of fertilizer that we put in that tub, we are actually putting 12 grams of nitrogen, we're actually putting about 5 grams of phosphorus, and we're putting about 12 grams of potassium. Then I also found a publication with the sufficiency range of the based on tissue analysis for basil. And so I put it here. So somebody analyzed basil and said that if there is 5% of nitrogen, 1% of phosphorus, and 2% of potassium, then that's sufficiency range. So then I said, okay, if I have 12 plants and the dry weight of each plant is about 20 grams, then I have a total biomass of 240 grams. And if that biomass has these percentages in the tissue, which it should, because it's a sufficiency range, then I need to add in my tub that feeds 12 plants, I need to add 12 grams of nitrogen, 2 of phosphorus, and 5 of potassium. So if you compare this quantity to this quantity, you see that we are actually applying more phosphorus that we need. We're applying about 4.6 grams of phosphorus, and we only need 2. And then we're applying 12 grams of potassium, and we only need 5. So based on this, I've been scratching my head and say, well, this stuff is actually pretty expensive. Here I calculated that those 20 fluid ounces of preempt costs us $5, which is not terrible for 12 plants, but it's still kind of high. Can we use a different fertilizer? And maybe if you're a backyard grower and you're using a couple of Kratky tubs, maybe it's gonna make a big difference. But if you're a commercial grower in a big nutrient film technique system, then it's gonna make a big difference. So I said, okay, let me make a recipe, and this is what this part of the spreadsheet is about. Let me make a recipe where I mix together preempt that is gonna provide not only nitrogen but also phosphorus and potassium, and presumably also all the other macronutrient and micronutrients that I'm not even worrying about. I know this is not very scientific, but I'm just trying experimentally to see if the plants grow, and they do, as you saw in the previous part of the video. And so I've been playing around with quantities, and based on these 3 percentages that come from the lab, and I said, well, okay, if I only put 10 fluid ounces of preempt, so half of what we were before, I would provide 6 grams of nitrogen, 2 of phosphorus, and 6 of potassium, and that would cost me half, right? And then I can use these other fertilizers that only have nitrogen, but they have a lot of it, and they're a lot cheaper in terms of nitrogen. One of them is called Grower's Secret, as I showed, and the other one is called Explorer. They're both 1600, so they both have 16% of nitrogen. And so if I apply 50 grams of those, then I will have applied 8 grams of nitrogen, right? Because by applying those 50 grams, there's 16%, only 16% of those 50 grams are nitrogen, so there are 8 grams of nitrogen. But check this out, those 8 grams of nitrogen only cost me 60 cents, so it's a lot cheaper. And so the totals, if you sum these grams of nutrients with these grams of nutrients, you get 14 grams of nitrogen, 2.3 grams of phosphorus, and 6.2 grams of potassium, which satisfy our sufficiency range, and in a cheaper way, right? So now I'm spending $3 per tub, $3.13 instead of $5.13. So this is how I came up with the recipe that you saw in those 2 tubs. And actually, one tub had Grower's Secret and the other one had Explorer, and I did not see a difference in the productivity of the two. So the two worked well enough. Down here, I also calculated the costs of how many dollars you pay for a pound of nitrogen with the various products. And this is very important. This is very important that you do this calculation when you decide what fertilizer you want to use. This is very important, so I want to walk you through it. Preempt costs $82 including shipping, and you buy a bottle of 2.5 gallons that are 320 fluid ounces or 21 pounds. So if you multiply these 21 pounds, so these are the pounds of fertilizer, you want to multiply these 21 pounds by the percentage of nitrogen that you have in it. And so basically you're calculating that inside this big jug that has a volume of 2.5 gallons and weighs 21 pounds, there is actually only a little less than half pound of nitrogen, right? I multiplied these 21 pounds by this 2.2%, and this is what I get, 0.45, like a little less than half. Then I divide the costs, those $82, by the pounds of nitrogen. So now I can calculate how many dollars do I pay for 1 pound of nitrogen. This is the most important number. Everything else is fluff. Everything else is fluff. When you are comparing fertilizers, particularly if they're organic, because the prices are a lot more variable there, you need to calculate how many dollars you pay for 1 pound of nitrogen. So here you can see that it's actually pretty expensive, right? And this $82 doesn't come only from the cost of the fertilizer, but also from shipping. Like it's about half. It's about $50 for the fertilizer and another $40 for shipping. Then I also looked at 2 different sources of 2 different packaging of Grower's Secret and Explorer, and they come in big bags of 250 that cost $250 and they're 50 pounds, or they come in a little baggie of 1 pound. And you can see that, of course, the 1 pound is a lot cheaper, but when you calculate the cost per fertilizer per pound of nitrogen, the cost of fertilizer per pound of nitrogen, turns out that the big one you're paying only $32, and the small bag you're paying $156 per pound of nitrogen, which is really close to preempt. So if you have to buy the little 1 pound bag of Grower's Secrets, then you'd be better off just using only preempt, right? Because you're gonna end up spending almost the same, and it's more headache. But if you buy the big 50 pound bag of fertilizer of Grower's Secret, now you're only paying $30 per pound of nitrogen, which is a good price if you're doing hydroponics. But just for comparison, in the realm of synthetic fertilizers, probably you're gonna pay $1 or $2 per pound of nitrogen. So these are very expensive fertilizers anyway. I did the same thing with the Explorer. They make bags of 44 pounds or little buckets of 8 pounds, like the one that I showed. And again, the big bags is a lot cheaper than the little bucket. But again, the point here is not the prices that I found just googling around stuff. Those are variable because they change with shipping and they change with the whoever is the distributor. But the important thing is that the point that I want to drive home once again is that you learn how to calculate the price in terms of dollars per pound of N. And again, if this is confusing to you, please give me a call and I will help you. And in this case here, this really cheap cost we calculated based on this cost, on the $30 a pound. And again, if here instead you are using the Grower's Secret that costs $25 a pound, this will jump up to cost $2, probably close to $2.50. So the total price would be $5 again, and you'd be better off just using preempt. We hope that you enjoyed this video once again. Please, if you made it this far, scan this code and complete the evaluation. It's very important. Even if you did not like the video, even if your feedback is even if your criticism is destructive, we still appreciate it. We still need it. And this is my contact information. Feel free to call me or to email me if you have any questions or comments, and I will see you in the next video.